Hey guys, this is a demo of how to install and use the Amazon Web Services WAF in front of a web server and additionally in front of an API gateway to configure some rules and stop malicious attacks. We will start with a common use case, fairly well known. There was an attack on a Capital One asset, and so we'll take that one and sort of customize it for our particular demo. In that demo, some hackers were able to send a request to an HTTP address 169.254, and what that would return is metadata about the internal AWS environment. So we'll build a web app firewall to stop that type of traffic. If you look at our network diagram, what we're going to do is take the role of a regular user and access the web server, but then what we're going to do is pivot and take the role of the attacker and use that same URL to insert a query string for that AWS metadata, and you will see how the web application firewall will stop that type of URL from going through and grabbing the data. Here you see the demonstration of a regular user accessing the web server, and it comes back with a legitimate page. Then you'll see a URL being sent from an attacker's point of view with that malicious query string, and then you will see that that is blocked, and that's because the WAF is inspecting that traffic before it goes back to the web server. Now we'll shift over to the REST API. So what we will do is have a regular user send a request through a REST API using Postman into a back-end sort of temporary pet store application. And you'll see that that will go through quite fine and quite legitimately. And then we will pivot and shift to show an attacker trying to insert that malicious query string again. And in that case, you'll see a customized response that will block that as a result of the web application firewall inspecting the API traffic before it goes back to the pet store endpoint. Now what you're going to see in this part of the demo is devices usually communicate with backend services through what are called REST APIs. It's not an end device. You can't really see the result in a web browser. But the way to demo that is to use a tool called Postman. And you can see here from the regular user's point of view, we can simulate or emulate a device sending an API request to the back end pet store, and we're going to do a get that returns successfully, and we're going to do a post and that returns successfully, and then we're going to pivot and take the same URL using Postman and assume that we're an attacker. We will insert a malicious string and try to do a get and a post, and what's going to come back is a specially crafted error message stating that that the AWS metadata is not allowed to traverse out past the web app firewall. So how we did it was fairly simple. First, we built a back-end web server, just a simple web server running on an Ubuntu machine, and that is front-ended by a load balancer. Then we set up an API endpoint, an example of an API endpoint called Pet Store, and what we did is we bound both the load balancer instance to the WAF web ACL to inspect the traffic before it sends it back to the server, and then we also bound that API gateway to that same WAF web ACL and to inspect the traffic before it goes back to the API endpoint. That concludes the demo of the AWS WAF protecting a web server or load balancing server, and in addition to that, protecting the API gateway. I hope you liked it.